Have you ever wondered why you feel moved by someone's eyes, or why even the slightest touch makes your heart skip a beat? I think in each of us, there are always silent questions about love, about emotions, about why we are close or distant with someone that sometimes we ourselves cannot explain. And that's why I want to invite you on a small journey where we will explore the hidden corners of emotions, intimacy, and our true selves. We live in an era where everything happens very quickly. Love is fast, emotions are fleeting, and true connections are becoming increasingly rare. But that's why I believe more than ever that understanding yourself clearly and understanding why you're moved, why you're hurt, and why you need a hug after being intimate has become extremely important. I'm not here to explain or give an ideal love formula. I just want to share with you the psychological truths that have been discovered through many studies, but I will tell them in a very human, very real way. These truths are not only about love, but also about we, about what makes us feel loved, connected, able to be ourselves. And the most interesting thing is, when you understand these things, you will not only improve your relationship, you will begin to change the way you see yourself, the way you communicate with others, and the way you love. From there, you will see that attraction does not come from appearance or certain skills, but from understanding, sincerity, and the way you create a sense of security for the person you love. So, if you've ever been confused by your feelings, ever wondered why you feel lonely even when you're with someone, or simply want to better understand yourself and the person you love, this journey is for you. Just let yourself slow down a bit and join me in a world of real connections where everything we feel has a very deep reason behind it. I want to share with you something very real, that I believe many people have felt but have not been able to name: feelings after intimacy. The moment right after two people reach their deepest intimacy, seemingly just the end of a physical act, is actually the beginning of a very complex series of emotions, especially for women. Have you ever noticed that after sex, the man turns his back and falls asleep, while the woman lies back with distant eyes, as if waiting for something? She didn't say it, but her body and heart wanted something very simple: to be held, to talk, to feel that intimacy had just happened, not just physical. For her, it is an emotion, a connection, a silent whisper. We are really close. There is nothing weak or complicated about this. In fact, that's how a woman's brain and heart react. When she feels connected, loved, and satisfied, her body releases hormones that make her yearn to be held, to stay in that bond longer. It is a positive loop between the physical and the emotional. The more connected she is, the more she opens up. And the more you open your heart, the deeper the intimacy between you two. But this is also the time when misunderstandings are most likely to occur. If a man just stays silent, turns away, or appears indifferent, she may feel abandoned. It's not because she needs you to do something big, but just because she needs to know that for you, that moment is also meaningful. I once heard a woman say this: "I don't need him to say he loves me after being intimate, but if he takes my hand, pulls me close, and is simply there, I will believe that I am truly loved." And I thought, that's not too hard to do, right? Of course, not all women are the same. Some people are strong, some people are independent, some people are less expressive. But somewhere in the heart of each person, there is still a basic need to feel safe, to continue being connected even after love has ended. And this is where communication becomes important. If you're a woman listening to this, don't be afraid to tell your man what you need. If you're a man, start paying a little more attention. A hug, a light kiss on the forehead, a whispered, "I'm here," has more power than you think. This is not just sex talk. This is a story about companionship, understanding, and true love. When two people learn to take care of each other both physically and emotionally after intimate moments, it is no longer just temporary pleasure. That is the foundation for a lasting and loving relationship. And I believe if you understand this and apply it, you will not only make your partner happier, but you will also experience a form of connection that is deeper than anything sex alone can bring. Because in the end, what we crave most after each intimacy is not satisfaction, but the feeling of staying in each other's arms for a long time. I want to talk to you about a topic that many people are often shy about, even avoiding, but in fact, if looked at properly, it is a very beautiful and important part of the journey of loving yourself. That is, being a woman. Touch yourself into your body, not because of simple desire, but because of connection, discovery, and respect for the feelings that belong to us. Did you know there have been studies showing that women who regularly explore their bodies, meaning they dare to touch their skin and listen to their own emotions, often have higher levels of sex hormones. Hormones such as estrogen or progesterone not only regulate reproductive health, but also greatly affect desire, emotions, and the way a woman connects with her partner. I'm not saying everyone has to do this, but I believe every woman deserves it. Understand your body well, because when you understand what you like and what you don't like, you will know how to say it and how to share it. You no longer feel shy, no longer afraid of being misunderstood or judged. You will become more confident, not because you are good at it, but because of you understand yourself from the inside. Self-touch is also a form of healing. In a world that always requires women to be beautiful according to standards, to be thin, to be smooth, to be perfect, touching your body with love will be an action against those pressures. When you gently caress your skin and don't judge it, when you look at your body not with scrutiny, but with gratitude, dopamine in your brain is released. You will feel more comfortable, closer to yourself, and this feeling will make you radiant in a very real way. I once heard a woman say, Only when I started touching my body like I was taking care of something sacred did I stop comparing myself to others. And I think that's one of the most liberating journeys you can take, the journey back to yourself. There is another very interesting thing. Women who understand their bodies will often have a more fulfilling sex life. They are no longer afraid to say, "I like it like this," "I don't like that," or "Please slow down a bit." They don't seek to please others. They seek truth in experience. And that is what makes closeness meaningful, no longer an act to please anyone, but a true sharing. So if you're a woman and you've ever felt self-conscious about yourself, I want you to know, your body doesn't need to be judged. It needs to be listened to. Touch your skin as if it were something beautiful. No purpose, no reason, just to remind myself, you are alive, feeling, connecting. And if you're a man watching this, remember, the more a woman understands her body, the more she connects with herself, the more deeply she will be able to connect with you. Not because she is technical, but because she is physically present. And the real presence in a love affair is what makes it memorable. Not the body, not the skill, but the feeling. We are here, real with each other. I don't know about you, but I've experienced this feeling when I walk into an intimate encounter with a lot of expectations in mind. I hope it will be great, memorable, and truly standard, as movies often depict. And then, everything was not as I thought. Not bad, but not as wow as I expected. The feeling of inadequacy began to creep in, and I wondered, is there something wrong? Am I not good enough? Actually, it's not that you're not good enough. It's just that you bring too many expectations to a moment that should be lived alone, most natural. In sex, expectations are a double-edged sword. It can make us excited, imaginative, and dreamy, but it can also cause us to put pressure on ourselves. When you enter love with the mindset of, I have to make that person swoon, I have to do it right, you are unintentionally turning a journey of connection into a performance. And when one of the two acts, the other person will also feel a loss of authenticity. Sadly, this expectation does not come naturally. We grow up in a world full of perfect images, movies, advertising, social networks, magical sex stories told like action movies. And then we believe that if we can't do that, it means we're not good enough. But you know, the most profound experiences I've ever witnessed or experienced have come from imperfect moments. One time they both burst out laughing because they accidentally bumped heads. Once stopped midway just to look at each other and say, "Are you okay?" One time, nothing intense, but very gentle, very real, very close. It's those things that make us remember, make us want to come back. Because sex, if you strip away the glamour, is still the same in the end. How two people choose to touch each other's inner world. And the dopamine that brings happiness to the brain isn't just produced by physical sensations. It is triggered by feelings of recognition, by cute surprises, by being true to ourselves in that moment. So instead of going into love with a list of expectations, try going in with the mindset, I don't know what will happen, but I'm ready to be present, ready to listen, and ready to be real with both of our feelings. If you're someone who often puts pressure on yourself, remember, you don't have to be the ideal lover. You just need to be a real person, know how to feel, know how to care, and know how to smile when things aren't perfect. Because intimacy isn't about the skills you learn somewhere. It's about whether you dare put down expectations, and entering love is like an unpredictable, unplanned journey of discovery. Just you and that person, truly yourself. And when you do that, you'll realize true intimacy doesn't need a script. It just needs two hearts willing to meet each other imperfectly, but sincerely. And that's what makes love more memorable than all the rumors. I want to share with you something interesting but also very important in connecting with women. Reading her signals. Don't say it. Maybe you've been in this situation. You're chatting, feeling like everything is fine, but then she starts looking away or crosses her arms or is unusually quiet. Are you confused about whether you did something wrong, or is she simply tired? The truth is, a lot of emotions are not in words but in eyes, body posture, distance when standing close, and even very small gestures. With women, this is even more obvious. Not because they are mysterious or cryptic, but because they often communicate in intuition and emotions outweigh reason. And if you're observant, you can see a lot in the way she shows up for you. For example, when a woman avoids your eyes or looks at the ground while you are speaking, she is most likely uncomfortable. It's not always a rejection, but it's often a signal that she's not ready or is keeping her distance. If she looks straight at you, has bright eyes, tilts her head slightly, or smiles slightly, it's often a sign of openness, showing that she wants to continue connecting. I once witnessed a very small but meaningful moment. A friend of mine was talking to a girl he liked. She didn't say much, but I noticed every time he leaned toward her, she leaned back. When he told a short story, she laughed, her hand unconsciously pushing her hair over her ear. He didn't realize it, but I saw clearly that it was the non-verbal language of attention, of interest. Dopamine, the transmitter of positive emotions, is not only released when we hear something pleasant. It is also activated when we feel noticed by others, is understood without having to say too much. A well-timed look, a slight nod, a subtle reflective gesture can all make a woman feel, this person is really here with me. But it's also important to note, not all signals should be interpreted one way. There are times when women avoid eye contact not because they are disgusted, but because they are shy or are in an emotional state that is difficult to share. So the important thing is not that you read it 100% correctly, but rather, are you observing with genuine interest? If you feel she is withdrawing, gently back away a bit. If she leans towards you, greet her with a warm smile. If you see her being quiet but not leaving, maybe what she needs is not words, but a gentle presence. I believe when a woman feels that she doesn't have to say everything to still be understood, she will open up. And you won't have to ask, "What are you thinking?" Because you will feel it through the way she looks at you, stands next to you, and stays with you. Love doesn't have to be noisy. Sometimes a look and a little listening are enough to create a deeper connection than any words. And if you learn to see with your heart, you will see that the woman next to you is saying a lot, even when she is not saying anything. I know that when it comes to sexual pleasure, most people often think of the private area as if that is the only place where women can feel sublimation. But that is only a very small part of the vast world of emotions and feelings that the female body possesses. And today I want you to discover something that may surprise you. Some women can completely orgasm just by chest stimulation without any impact on what are usually considered central areas. Sounds unbelievable? It's actually very easy to understand if you know that a woman's chest area contains countless nerve endings, especially the areola and nipple areas. When touched properly, gently but connectedly, this entire area can send stimulation signals throughout the body. And for women who are sensitive and emotionally open, that feeling can be so strong that it brings them to orgasm. But the best thing here isn't just about the physical reaction, which is deep emotional connection behind every touch. When a woman feels safe, loved, and truly trusts the person she is with, her body will allow sublime emotions to occur. No more barriers, no more defenses. And at that moment, even a chest area that seems to be just a place for gentle caressing can become a door leading to the peak of pleasure. I remember a woman once told me that her partner didn't know any special techniques, but every time he bent down to kiss her breasts with tenderness and attention, her whole body felt like it was lit up. "It's not because he's good," she said, "but because he's present. He doesn't just do it. He's sincere." That's the difference. When you touch without haste, without trying to make it work, but just to feel, to connect, the woman's body will know how to respond. And dopamine, the chemical that makes us feel loved and alive, will flood her brain, not just because of pleasure, but because meaning behind that closeness. I also want to add this to you. Each woman is a different world. Some people will feel it easily. Others will need time. But whether you orgasm or not, taking the time to explore and love her body with respect and tenderness is always invaluable. It tells her, you deserve to be felt, to be explored, to be cherished. So if you are a man who wants to understand your woman better, don't ignore the chest area. Don't see it as just the opening for a love affair. See it as a place where you can connect with your eyes, with your hands, with your breath, and with the true presence of your heart. When you do that, you're not just giving pleasure, you are creating safety, trust, vibration, and perhaps from those things, a kind of orgasm that is even greater than the physical will occur. It is the moment when she feels herself to be seen and loved completely. I want to tell you about something that very few people say, but once you know it, you will find it truly magical. A woman's clitoris. And you know what's most special? It is an agency never get old. Yes, you heard that right. No matter how much the body changes over time, no matter how far one advances in age, the clitoris still retains its sensitivity, remaining the center of pleasure and deep connection with oneself. Perhaps you have heard someone say that sex is a matter of youth, that when a woman passes a certain age, her desire gradually decreases, and her pleasure is no longer as exciting as before. But the truth is the opposite. The older a woman gets, and the more she understands her body, the more opportunity she has to experience sex more deeply and completely. And the clitoris is the silent but persistent key to that journey. If you look at anatomical diagrams, the clitoris may look like a small spot located above the vulva, but that's just the tip. In fact, it is a complex structure that extends inwards with more than 8,000 nerve endings than any other organ in the body. And the best thing is, it does not age over time. This means that even though hormones change, whether the body goes through stages such as menopause, childbirth, or psychological fluctuations, the clitoris still retains the ability to bring pleasure if touched properly, understood properly, and loved properly. I once sat and listened to a 58-year-old woman say, "I never really knew I could have an orgasm until I turned 50. Before, I loved because of other people. Now, I love because I understand what makes me happy." That sentence left me speechless, because it's so real, so beautiful, and so full of life. We live in a society that often values youth and still quietly associates sex with youthfulness and outward charm. But did you know, the feeling of sublimation does not lie in curves or smooth skin. It lies in presence, in understanding, in connection with oneself. And the clitoris is a silent symbol of that part of the body that is always there, waiting for you to turn around and ask, "What do you need?" And if you are a man watching this, I hope you will look back at the woman next to you, no matter her age, with new appreciation. Because in her, there is always an intact source of pleasure, as long as you are patient enough and gentle enough to listen. When you touch her, not just with your hands, but with respect, with unhurried eyes, you are rekindling a memory that she may have forgotten she had. Dopamine, the chemical that brings about feelings of happiness, not only appears when we experience pleasure, but is also released when we feel I'm still valuable, still alive, still desirable. And you can give that to each other not with perfection, but with sincerity. So remember, pleasure has no age. Sex has no expiration date, and that tiny but magical gift of the clitoris will always be there, faithful and persistent, as a reminder that you are still worthy of being loved, explored, and enjoyed at any stage of life. I don't know if you've heard of this, but women's orgasms actually last a lot longer than men's. And not only longer in time, but also deeper, more complex, and also more subtle. Maybe you're thinking, so what? But I believe that if you understand this difference, you will see a whole colorful world behind those sublime moments. A world that if we know how to enter, we can not only make women happy, but also reach a very different form of connection ourselves. On average, male orgasm usually lasts only about 10 to 30 seconds. What about women? They can feel the contraction, the vibration, the relaxation that lasts from 20 to even 60 seconds and sometimes longer, if that moment comes from a truly connecting experience. But more important than time is emotional quality in each vibration. I once heard a woman describe the moment she climaxed as a wave gradually spreading throughout her body, no noise, no rush, but making me feel like I was melting with each breath. After listening, I just remained silent, because I suddenly realized that there are feelings that cannot be measured in seconds, but can only be felt with complete presence. And here's the important point. For that pleasure to actually happen and last, a woman needs to feel safe. Safe to let loose. Safe for incontinence. Safe to be yourself without fear of being judged. And that's why men who know how to create the feeling of you are allowed to be you always make women remember you, not because of their good technique, but because they make pleasure a comprehensive experience. One interesting thing is that the hormone dopamine that creates feelings of excitement is secreted not only when pleasure occurs, but also before, when a woman begins to feel loved, noticed, and caressed with genuine care. That means orgasms don't start in the bedroom. They start with eyes, words, gentle touches, and the feeling of connection long before. And you know, this difference in time is not a weakness for men, but an opportunity. It's a reminder. If you slow down a bit, if you're not in such a hurry to get there, you can go on a beautiful journey with her, where every minute, every second can be a memorable moment. When you let go of the pressure to get it done and instead feel it together, all limitations will disappear. I want to tell you, whether you are male or female, that orgasm is more than just the peak moment. It is the way we touch each other with both body and soul. And women, with the ability to feel longer and deeper, are the door for both people to enter a world where feeling and love become one. So, if possible, start learning to prolong experiences not with clock time, but with attention, presence, and real listening. Because sometimes, what makes a woman memorable isn't how long you were there. It's, during that time, are you truly present or not? I believe you have heard or are even very familiar with this question. How do you look? It sounds simple, right? a question about appearance, about hairstyle, dress, or new lipstick. But if you stop for a moment and really listen, you will realize that behind that question is a very fragile area of emotions, and if you answer without subtlety, you could miss the opportunity to connect more deeply with the woman in front of you. The question, "What do you look like?" Not just looking for a comment. Sometimes it's a soft whisper of insecurity. It's the voice of the heart that needs a nod, a look of encouragement, or simply a feeling you are still seen, recognized, loved. And you know, for many women, appearance is not just about appearance, it is closely tied to emotions, to self-esteem, to how they see themselves. I remember one time my girlfriend tried on a new dress. She walked out and asked, "What do you think?" Slightly hesitant, I told the truth. "I think that dress suits you better." She was silent, turned away, and that whole day there was something different in the atmosphere. Only later did I understand that she didn't need to know which one was more beautiful. She's just looking for a look that makes her feel that she's still attractive, still beautiful enough in my eyes, not because of the dress, but because herself. From that day, I learned one thing: honesty is good. But when accompanied by kindness and understanding, it truly has the power to heal. Because questions about her appearance sometimes come from a day when she's not confident, a tiring week at work, or simply a moment when she wants someone to see her radiant again. Science also shows that the neurotransmitter dopamine that makes us feel happy is released when we receive positive recognition, especially from people we care about. A well-timed compliment, no matter how small, can become a source of energy to help her step out of the doubts and invisible pressures that are weighing her down. That doesn't mean you have to compliment everything, but you can absolutely tell the truth in a loving way. Instead of, "You're a bit round," you can say, "I like how plump you are. It makes me feel warm." Instead of, "This color is a bit dark," try, "This color is really dark, but the look in your eyes today is what makes me unable to leave." We don't need to become psychologists to answer an everyday question. We just need to become truly present. The one who looks deeper than her lipstick, her dress, or her curves and taps into what she needs: recognition. So, the next time she turns and smiles and asks, "How do you look?" stop for a moment. Look at her closely. Remember why you love her. Remember the look in your eyes when you first met. Remember the time she made you laugh just because of a wince. And then answer not just with your mouth, but with your eyes, with your presence, with the true feelings in your heart. Because sometimes what makes women feel most beautiful is not the perfect compliment, but when they know in the eyes of the person they love, they are as always beautiful enough, special enough, and enough to be loved no matter which version of yourself. I want to ask you a question, very light, but also very real. Have you ever felt lonely, even when you are with a lot of people? If so, I just want to say you are not alone in that. We live in a world where we can connect with hundreds of people with just a tap of the phone. But more and more, I hear more and more people sigh. I don't know who to share with. I feel like I'm lost in the crowd. Or, I laugh a lot, but inside I feel empty. And I understand. Because loneliness doesn't come from having no one around, but from having no one really understand and listen. Prolonged loneliness is a very silent thing. It doesn't knock on the door. It doesn't make noise. But little by little, it drains the life energy from us. When we live in that feeling for a long time, we start to doubt our own value, start to shrink into ourselves, start to think, well, no one cares. And sadly, when we think like that, it's even easier to withdraw from relationships, creating a vicious cycle with no way out. I once went through such a time. Long days of silence, not wanting to go out, not wanting to text anyone first because I was afraid of indifference. But then one day, I sat down and wrote a simple line to an old friend. "How have you been?" And surprisingly, on the other side there was someone who was also waiting to be asked that. That small conversation that day was like a door being opened again. Noiseless, but enough for me to feel I'm not invisible. The truth is, all of us need connection. It is an instinctive human need. When we feel like we belong somewhere, are recognized, and are listened to, dopamine is released in the brain. It helps us feel more positive, more motivated, and gradually regain lost vitality. But I also want you to know, not everyone is good at taking initiative. Someone is waiting for you to speak first. There are people who are also suffering from loneliness like you, but don't know where to start. So if you're feeling lost, try taking a small step. Send a message, invite someone out for coffee, or simply tell yourself, "Today I will go out, even if it's just for a walk." Don't forget that loneliness is not always bad. Having time alone will help you hear your heart more clearly. Understand what you really need. Know what makes you happy without depending on others. But it's important not to let being alone turn into emotional isolation. Because humans, no matter how strong, need connection to grow. If you are going through a period of loneliness, I hope you understand that it does not make you weak. It just says you're very human. And from there, you can find beautiful connections that are not always quick, but are definitely real. Let's start with a small step, because sometimes a simple greeting is enough to rekindle the light you thought had long gone out. I know this is a sensitive subject, but because it is important and affects so many people, especially men, I want us to talk about it honestly, comfortably, and without judgment. It's about size. Many men grow up feeling that to be attractive, to be enough, they must be an ideal size. Movies, social networks, and even unintentional jokes also contribute to creating an invisible pressure. And you know, that pressure makes many people have low self-esteem, worry, and even avoid intimacy just because they think they're not good enough. But what is the truth? I want you to hear this slowly. The majority of women do not place size as the most important factor in their sex life. They care about emotions, to connection, to the feeling of being cherished, listened to, and present in that moment. Size may be part of the experience, but it is not the determining factor of pleasure. I once talked to a woman in her 30s. She said, "I had sex with someone who was my ideal size according to society's standards, but I never felt connected. Everything felt like a performance, while someone else who wasn't impressed by his appearance made me feel moved by the way he touched me, as if I was the only one who existed at that moment." And I believe many women feel the same way, because pleasure, especially for women, doesn't just come from physical contact. It starts from eye contact, from a well-timed hug, from understanding and sophistication in every small action. Dopamine, the chemical that creates feelings of excitement and connection, is released when we feel loved, understood, and safe. It doesn't react to size, but to feeling truly connected. That's why people who know how to communicate, listen, and care often bring a much deeper experience than those who are just good at performing. I'm not saying size doesn't matter, but if you're worried that you don't meet certain standards, remember, there is no single standard. Every woman has a different body, a different emotion, and a different need. The most important thing is you know how to listen to the other person's body with your own heart. If there's something you want to improve, start with connection. Ask, "What do you like? What can I do to make you feel better?" And don't forget to ask yourself, am I in love with presence, or am I just trying to prove something? When you let go of your size obsession, you'll discover something wonderful. You can be the lover she'll remember forever, not because you're so different, but because you make her feel, "I'm so special." And finally, if you are a woman watching this, I hope you will also be the one to help your man heal from that silent worry. With a reassuring word, a trusting look, or simply a tight hug to let him know, "For me, you are enough." Because sex, more than anything, is where we can be ourselves. No comparison, no pressure, just real feelings. And two people choose to stay together, complete. We went through a pretty special journey together. Not a journey of techniques, formulas, or tips. It's a journey of understanding yourself, understanding the person you love, and understanding emotions that are sometimes silent but strangely profound. I believe, after everything we just shared, you also feel one thing: sex, love, and intimacy are inseparable from each other. They are not just actions, but moments of connection where we can be ourselves, touching a very real part of the other person and also of ourselves. The thing that makes me feel most grateful when doing this content series is when I realize everyone has questions. Maybe it's about the body, maybe it's about emotions, Maybe it's about how to love and be loved properly. And sometimes, just having someone sit down and say something that we think we shouldn't say, then things start to move. The mind is opened, the heart becomes softer, and that happy emotion dopamine begins to be released. I don't expect you to remember every detail, but if there's one thing that remains, I hope it's the feeling. You are seen, understood, and you have nothing to be ashamed of for who you are. Whether you're learning about sex, healing from relationship trauma, or simply want to know where you stand in this emotional world, you're on the right track. It's okay to be slow, as long as it's real. Continue to love with presence. Touch each other with tenderness. Talk to each other with sincerity. And let sex, instead of being something that makes us worry or compare, become a beautiful, vivid, and very human part of this life. Thank you for sitting with me for so long. Hopefully, in these small stories, you have found a little light, a little warmth, and a little courage to move on to love deeper, live more truly, and connect closer. Because you are worthy. That's true.